Have you ever sat in front of a frozen screen and realized that your $3,000 computer is essentially a very expensive space heater? Did you know that in the year 2025, a single top-tier graphics card moves nearly 2 terabytes of data every single second? That is not just a number. It is the digital equivalent of trying to shove the entire Atlantic Ocean through a garden hose without the hose exploding. Welcome to the relentless, expensive, and often thermal-throttled history of graphics memory. Before we dive into the machine, hit the subscribe button to ensure you stay ahead of the silicon curve. Think about the last time you played a game with breathtaking textures. Every blade of grass, every reflection in a puddle, and every bead of sweat on a character's face has to live somewhere before it hits your monitor. That place is the VRAM. For decades, the tech giants have been playing a high-stakes game of poker with your wallet, promising that the next generation of memory will finally make your experience seamless. But have you ever stopped to ask why your old card suddenly feels like a brick the moment a new one is announced? In the beginning, there was chaos. We go back to 1998. At that time, computers used standard system memory for everything. It was like using a minivan to try and win a Formula One race. It was too slow, too general, and completely overwhelmed by the demands of three-dimensional rendering. Samsung looked at this mess and saw an opportunity to become the ultimate gatekeeper of performance. They introduced what we now call GDDR1, though back then it was known by the mouthful DDRS-GRAM. The trick was simple but effective. They decided to transfer data twice per clock cycle. Once when the electrical signal went up and once when it came down. It was the birth of the double data rate era. The NVIDIA GeForce 256 was the first to feast on this new technology. It proved a cold, hard truth that governs the industry to this day. A GPU is only as good as the speed at which it can be fed. If the memory is slow, the most powerful processor in the world is just a brain waiting for a thought that never arrives. By 2002, the industry was getting greedy. This is where we see the first real villain arc in our story. The manufacturers wanted more speed, and they wanted it immediately. They gave us GDDR2. On paper, it looked like a revolution. It pushed clock speeds to the limit and delivered 4 gigabytes per second of bandwidth per chip. But there was a catch that the marketing departments neglected to mention in their glossy brochures. GDDR2 was an electrical nightmare. It required a massive jump in voltage to stay stable. In the world of physics, higher voltage equals more heat. The NVIDIA GeForce FX 5800 Ultra became the poster child for this disaster. It ran so hot and required such a massive loud cooling system that people nicknamed it the Dustbuster. The tech companies had prioritized raw numbers over the reality of a user's living room. They sold a product that was practically melting itself just to stay relevant. This was a classic case of the company acting as the predator and the user as the victim. They pushed a half-baked standard to claim the performance crown, leaving enthusiasts with loud, hot, and unreliable hardware. If you ever find yourself looking at a spec sheet that seems too good to be true, remember the FX 5800. Sometimes the next big thing is just a localized fire hazard. Thankfully, the industry learned its lesson, or at least it pretended to. In 2004, GDDR3 arrived to save the day. This was the first generation that actually cared about efficiency. It lowered the voltage and increased the bandwidth to 8 gigabytes per second. This wasn't just a win for PC elitists. This was the moment graphics memory went mainstream. If you owned an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3, you were using GDDR3. The tech giants realized that to make real money, they needed to conquer the living room. GDDR3 became the backbone of a decade of gaming. It was reliable, it was cool, and it was everywhere. For the first time, the villains and the victims were in a sort of temporary truce. The hardware worked as advertised, and the prices were somewhat justifiable. But in this industry, peace never lasts long. The hunger for more pixels is an insatiable beast. Then came the year 2006, and with it, the forgotten generation. GDDR4 is the middle child that no one talks about at Thanksgiving. It offered a slight bump in speed, but the gains were so marginal that NVIDIA didn't even bother to use it. Only AMD took the bait with their Radeon HD 2000 series. It was a classic example of innovation for the sake of innovation. The tech companies tried to create a new cycle of spending, but the market saw through the ruse. If you are ever tempted to upgrade your hardware for a 10% gain, think of GDDR4. It is the embodiment of the diminishing returns trap. Sometimes, the industry releases a product just to keep the production lines moving, not because they have actually discovered something better. Don't be the victim who pays for a label. Wait for the leap, not the shuffle. The real leap happened between 2008 and 2009 with the arrival of GDDR5. This was the long-reigning monarch of the GPU world. It didn't just double the data rate, it quadrupled it. This quad data rate technology allowed for 32 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. It was so successful that it stayed relevant for an entire decade. From the GTX 900 series to the PlayStation 4, GDDR5 was the gold standard. Why did it last so long? Because it was the perfect balance of cost and performance. The tech companies couldn't justify moving to something new because GDDR5 was simply too good. It represents a rare moment where the consumer actually got their money's worth for a long period. But as we know, when a product is too good, the companies start looking for ways to create artificial needs. They need you to feel like your decade-old king is now a peasant. Enter 2016. The industry was getting restless. Micron introduced GDDR5X. It wasn't a new generation. It was a transitional upgrade. NVIDIA used it to make the GTX 1080 feel like a titan. It was a clever move. By tweaking an existing standard, they could charge new generation prices without the massive R&D costs of a truly new architecture. It was a bridge to the future, built with the bricks of the past and the gold of the consumers. By 2018, the world was ready for the modern era. GDDR6 became the new baseline. It was faster, more efficient, and capable of 80 gigabytes per second per chip. It powered the RTX 20 series and the start of the ray tracing revolution. But this is also where the villainy became more sophisticated. The tech companies stopped just selling speed and started selling ecosystems. They began pairing this memory with proprietary software tricks to make you feel like you couldn't live without their specific brand of silicon. Then, the plot thickened in 2020. NVIDIA decided that standard wasn't enough. They partnered with Micron to create GDDR6X. This introduced a new way of talking to the memory called PAM4. Instead of just on or off, the electrical signals now had 4 different levels. It allowed for 2 bits of data to be sent at the same time. It was a stroke of genius, but it came with a high cost. GDDR6X is incredibly complex. It requires precision that borders on the insane. If the signal is even slightly off, the whole system becomes unstable. This is the moment the tech company says, "We have given you the fastest car in the world, but you can only drive it on our specific, very expensive road." By making the standard exclusive, NVIDIA locked their high-end customers into a specific ecosystem. You weren't just buying memory. You were buying a ticket to a walled garden. Now we stand at the precipice of a new era. In early 2024, GDDR7 was standardized. It first appeared in the wild in 2025, leading the charge with NVIDIA's RTX 50 series. This isn't just a small step. It is a fundamental shift in how your computer thinks. They have moved to something called PAM3 signaling. It uses 3 voltage levels to find a sweet spot between speed and stability. The numbers are staggering. We are looking at starting speeds of 28 gigatransfers per second, with a roadmap leading to 48. In a card like the RTX 5090, we are talking about 1.79 terabytes of bandwidth. Why do you need this? For games? Maybe, but the real reason this exists is for artificial intelligence. The tech companies have found a new, even wealthier victim to sell to the AI industry. You, the gamer, are now secondary. The memory in your next graphics card is being designed to train neural networks and process massive datasets. You are just a passenger on a ship, built for a different destination. The companies are acting in their own interest, chasing the AI gold rush, and you are left paying the premium for a level of performance that your favorite games might not even use for years. So, what is the lesson in all of this silicon history? The tech company is not your friend. They are a business designed to create a problem-slow performance, and then sell you the solution every 2 years. They use technical jargon like PAM3 and quad data rate to mask the fact that they are essentially just finding new ways to push more electricity through a tiny piece of sand. As a user, your power lies in your patience. Do not be the victim of the first adopter tax. When a new memory standard like GDDR7 launches, it will be expensive, it will be buggy, and it will be overkill for 90% of people. The companies want you to feel the fear of missing out. They want you to think that your GDDR6 card is a relic of the Stone Age. It isn't. Our advice? Understand the cycle. The best value is always found in the refined stage of a technology, not the revolutionary stage. GDDR3 was better than GDDR2. GDDR5 was a masterpiece of longevity. GDDR6 is currently the rational choice. GDDR7 is for the enthusiasts with more money than sense, or for those who truly need it for professional AI work. Ask yourself this. Is the game you are playing today actually stuttering because of your memory bandwidth, or is it just poorly optimized? Most of the time, the villain isn't the hardware. It's the software developers who know that as long as memory gets faster, they don't have to work as hard to make their code efficient. It is a cycle of laziness fueled by your hardware budget. In the end, the history of GDDR is a story of human ambition and the laws of physics. We are constantly fighting against heat and electrical noise to reach a digital utopia that is always just one generation away. From the 64 megabytes of the 1990s to the 32 gigabytes of today, we have come a long way. But the goalpost is always moving. Are you going to keep chasing it? Or are you going to step back and realize that the hardware you have right now is already a miracle of modern engineering? The next time you see a headline about record-breaking bandwidth, take a deep breath. Look at your current setup. If it still plays your favorite games, then you have already won the game. The industry thrives on your dissatisfaction. They need you to feel like you are falling behind. But in the world of technology, behind is often the most comfortable and cost-effective place to be. Let the giants fight over their terabytes. You should focus on the experience. Before you go and check your VRAM usage, remember to subscribe to the channel. We are here to help you navigate this silicon jungle without losing your shirt. What do you think? Is GDDR7 a necessary evolution for AI, or is it just another way to inflate the price of gaming? Drop a comment below and let us know if you think the performance gains are worth the thermal cost.